how was the transition from high school to university life in architecture program? So much different. I think also the culture shock, and I don't know how high school is here, but definitely the thing that you already mentioned, that you're kind of on a much more friendlier terms with this teachers and tutors, and they start treating you like young adults, right?
Mhm.
It's definitely like a process to adjust to that and see that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that the fact that they treat you like adults, we can you all go for like, a beer or like just some kind of other social activity. And
It makes
yeah, that
difference.
was I think the most different. And I also one of the things is that you can really focus on learning what you really like and enjoy.
Yes. So architecture is very specific.
It is.
Um, I mean, like at least in Poland, when you go to
Mhm.
like every year, every school, you have more of a general teaching about every subject there is really, or every subject the institution thinks it's important.
Yeah.
But it's very, you have a little of everything. Whereas when you go to university, and that's probably true to every subject, not just architecture, you obviously concentrate more on the specific field. But I think for me, one of the challenges actually when starting to study was that you suddenly have 3 days of university and then you have 2 free days, which
Oh
you
yeah,
have
that's true.
to, like, you have to be good or like start
To learn
necessarily like
and
learning how to divide that space. I mean, there are many
Mhm.
myths with architecture in general and with studying architecture,
That's
associated
true.
with studying architecture. One of them is that you have to work really hard, you have to do all-nighters and complain about it all the time.
To be honest, I think it's a myth and it isn't in a way, because it's definitely how my experience looked like, but I
Yes,
think it didn't have to look that way.
exactly. That's what I'm
I
trying to
But there is
say. Yeah.
definitely this thing which I'm currently fighting against as well, that people brag about how little they slept. It almost becomes like this
Exactly.
kind of cool thing to do. Oh, I just slept 2 hours, right? And it is true that there are certain amounts of work that they give you that's like sometimes impossible to complete in
It
time. But
is
I think
challenging.
it's just having an open discussion about that and talking to tutors
Hmm.
about it, right? I think there's definitely things that can help. And I think learning a bit of the softwares as well. I think
That's a good
a lot
idea
of moments you
prior
know
to
what you want
starting.
to do,
Yeah.
but you don't know how to do it. And that trial and error to get to that point where it's actually done, like really takes a lot of time
Yes,
out of you.
yes. So that's probably the good advice in the previous
Yeah.
section. What should you do
Think learn
before
Photoshop,
applying? Photoshop,
learn InDesign,
AutoCAD,
AutoCAD, yes, for
or
sure. Vectorworks,
Revit. Actually,
Revit,
all
like
of them are free for
I don't think
students
Revit would be useful later on. I'm not sure how useful it would be in the early years of study. I think there are even some universities that tell you not to use Revit at the beginning.
because it's very,
Restrictive in a way.
yes, in
Yeah.
terms of the form you actually can
Yeah. So
create.
I
So
think
Rhino,
AutoCAD,
there are
Rhino
so
is a
many.
good one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we used Rhino throughout the entire. I mean,
Yeah. All
also depends
university
on the
years.
university, I guess.
It does, but they won't force you to like if you know already something, you can always use it. Like they won't force you, oh no, you have to
In the
switch to
end,
this
is
one.
obviously it's up to you
Yeah.
how you create something that you have to create. But just going quickly back to
Mhm.
my point previously, so like one of the huge challenges was the fact that, as you said,
Mhm.
everyone kind of felt that they had to brag about
Yeah.
how tired they are, how many hours they spent, how many nights they didn't sleep.
Mhm.
And it's such a toxic
It
and
is.
unhealthy culture. And I think it's slightly slowly changing now because people
Slowly, yeah.
obviously are realizing how important
Yeah.
the, like, mental health is, and
Mhm.
proper sleep and everything that's associated with that. But that was actually really difficult because it made it okay to spend those nights and
Yes.
all those hours. And like, if you are really good, and I know it's really difficult to be good with your time management, but if you're really good, you definitely have enough time to do
Make plans.
everything, yeah,
Mhm.
what you asked for, to make progress constantly and complete everything without sacrificing your
Yes, I think
health,
it's
really.
possible, but you really need to fight against the trends, I think.
Yes, exactly. Yes. But that's something that you have to learn because there is a lot. in
Yeah.
comparison to other courses, not all of them, but there are courses that are much less demanding, and
Yes, like even from
architecture
our
is not one
friends,
of
some
them.
of them like they couldn't believe how much time is spent on things.
Yes. So it will be very challenging
Mhm.
and tiring, and there will be days when you spend so many hours at the university or making models or in front of a
Mhm.
computer that you will be looking like a zombie. But just remember that regardless of what everyone else says,
Yeah.
like your friends at
We
university,
need sleep.
this is not the way that you should do it.
Yeah.
So try to fight it.
Try to
You
fight
weren't
it,
strong
please.
enough. Actually, to be honest, I wasn't strong enough in the first 3 years.
Yes, but the
But
second,
after that,
the masters were much better.
so much better. I made a commitment that
Me
I
too.
would never
Yeah.
do an all-nighter, and it
Yeah.
worked.
Yeah, I
And I
still
was equally efficient.
yes, and in architecture studies, you do this kind of sometimes a year out between your bachelor and masters, and I spent so much time extra outside of working, like learning softwares and stuff like that, just so I'm more efficient with the way I work, right?
yeah.
And I think it really, really helped because at masters I could manage my time much, much better in a way.
I mean,
It's still stressful,
probably
but
part of growing and having that previous experience, so it definitely helps. But if Kasia said,
Mhm.
if you manage to learn some software before going to your first year of university, that will be so
Tremendous.
helpful. Yes, and reduce your
Yeah.
time of preparing anything significantly.
Definitely. Yes.
So,
Okay.
good tip.
Good tip. Let's look at the next question. Did you seek any support or resources from the university to help you navigate different challenges? Like definitely university, had a lot of computers and workshops and things like that. And the teachers were there. And I think there's a lot of resources for that. I don't think there was much they could I guess they could do something more maybe in regards to this policy of like non-sleeping.
Yes,
I think
the
there's
toxic
definite-
environment that is famous.
Yeah.
Architecture is famous for.
Because like when we say toxic environment, I think we just mainly talk about the sleeping culture and working tremendous hours. I'm not saying don't work hard. And when there's a deadline, of course you'll work later nights and stuff like that. It happens, right? It's just not making it a habit and trying to ask universities to do a bit more, like I think courses or like raise awareness of that a little bit more, or try to manage the workload for the students a bit more. Because apart from that, I loved the atmosphere and this kind of creative vibrancy that we had at university. So like even the sleepless nights, some of them I remember fondly because they were all done, like a lot of them were done together with friends and we were all working together. There was this sense of camaraderie, but I guess you can still have it while not abandoning sleep altogether.
Exactly.
Yes.
I mean, it's a bit of partially due to luck whether you end up in a group that's really like supportive and friendly.
Yeah.
But sometimes you might end up in a group that's like super ambitious and competitive,
Mhm.
and this is not as healthy as it might be.
Yes.
But as you said, those are really good experiences and
You learn.
memories. Yeah, you learn.
Ultimately, you learn.
Yes, but just going back to the question, I think I don't know how well we have no experience in going to like A levels or primary school here in the UK, but the university, like the study groups, are really individually oriented. So
Yes,
they
that's
are
for sure.
focused on each person individually, and they advise you according to your progress, to your ideas. So I think at least the university we went to, I think that was actually very well organized and like really good approach to help
That's for
develop
sure.
and support the students.
Like the teachers definitely spend time with each person, making sure that they develop well. And what is so fun is that like each project is so like different, and you could really see the interest and sensibilities of every person in the course. So I definitely did like that a lot.
Yes, and actually, like each project is different. You mean like each
Like-
student's project?
Yes, each student's project. Yes.
Like you have the same brief, but then you have the group of 10 students. You've got 10 completely different outcomes, which is great, and the tutors always support that. So
That's
it's
amazing.
really yes. You almost makes you want to go back there, right?
Almost, yes.
Almost.
So let's move on to the next question. Were there any professors, architects, or like particular courses that significantly influenced or inspired you during this time? Hmm, that's a good question. To be honest, I did enjoy all of my tutors. Like we talk about, let's say, first year of architecture in general, I had a tutor at Westminster who was really great. I really enjoyed working with him. I think he was very supportive, but also spent some time like, bonding with the students in a way that allowed us to all to have a really good teaching environment, right? So that he could then guide us well. And the projects were fun. And I think he really did encourage this kind of individualism in working conditions and environment and projects. I don't know. I really, really enjoyed working with him. I think he still is at Westminster and he still teaches there. Back then, I think it was his first years or even first year of studying, if I remember correctly. But I think he did an amazing job. Oh, yes, teaching. Sorry. Yeah, I think it was really great collaborations. He really did care about the students and he really let us explore various topics. And, he was really outgoing as well as let us explore things outside the university. He really tried to bring to the university as much as possible to help the students grow.
I completely agree. I agree with everything you just said. And when I entered university, the perfect cube and this type of Mies van der Rohe architecture is the best solution to everything, modernism in general. But I think in my second year, we explored the arts and crafts era here in UK. And that's changed my view on architecture so significantly. And I think since then, I'm not a fan of modernism anymore. And I appreciate this more attention to detail and one-of-a-kind approach to architecture. And I just love it. And I honestly, since then, I fell in love with arts and crafts movement. And I think I try to incorporate it with like in every design decision, really. And of course, I know there are opinions that it's such a waste because, it's just the function that you should follow. But architecture is it's so much more. And, creating, like putting this extra effort and sometimes extra money in creating something that will be standing there for sometimes like hundreds of years.
And to be honest, there are also other aspects of design like health focused, as for example we are, and there is a lot of things that are health related where just simple forms won't do, and the whiteness and the brightness is not always the best solution to everything. But you learn all of that, enjoy that. Like after the first year you have like a range of units, and each unit has a tutor that focuses on slightly something different, right? And you can try to choose your like preferences to which units you'd like to go, so that you can really explore different aspects of architecture, right? So it's very diverse, and it really allows you to grow in different ways and explore different topics based on what you like and what you enjoy. So I think that's a great
university about, right?
Yes,
just exploring. Yes, that's another advice from us. Just explore as much as you can until you find something that you really like, because I assure you, when you finish university, you will be in a completely different position. Like throughout those 5 years of study, full-time university, you will realize that architecture is something completely different that you originally assumed.
Yes,
or there's so just like so much more. Yes,
I think it's simply so much more.
Exactly, all those processes. This will be your main chance to explore the topic and just like play with it. Really
have fun.
Enjoy, yes.
Definitely enjoy. Don't forget to enjoy this time.
It is a stressful time because obviously it is very challenging, but it's so much fun. Like you rarely have an opportunity in like real life to go through those amazing projects, usually.
That's true. Like in real life, you can make projects enjoyable, but university sometimes, like depending where you go or into focus, like you can do projects which are so abstract and something that
and
you
have
know,
pretty much
you may
has
never
no
have the
constraints like financial or planning or
oh yeah.
building regulations. Surprisingly, you don't do much
Yeah.
of it at university, and this is
Yeah,
a
I think in
different
later
topic. Yeah.
stages we'll talk about more about it. But especially I think when you start having some constraints, but also be unconstrained in certain ways to really explore and grow. Look, just simply out there is important as well.
Yes, it helps the creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have then reflecting on your first year experience. What advice would you give to aspiring architects about to embark on their university journey? Okay.
Shall we just summarize what we just
I
said?
think so. Maybe it's quite a long video, I think, already. I think remember to sleep. I think we talked quite a lot about that.
Think about your mental health, because there was a study published recently that, I don't know, it was like half of the students or even more of architecture students, we will correct that in the description box or somewhere on the screen, because I can't remember the exact number, but there are so many of architecture students who suffer like serious mental issues. They have serious
you need to
mental
be
issues.
really careful, definitely.
Yeah.
So I think that's the most important. Remember as well to have fun, to really go out there and explore different topics. Definitely learn some of the softwares and CAD softwares, as like it will simply help you with the workload. Like it's just as simple as that, right? When you apply, again, think about how things come together. Focus more on the process than the goal and the outcome. I think showing others how you think, how you process information, what interests you is what's most important.
Exactly.
Yeah, have we covered everything then?
Yes, probably.
Okay, so I think it will be all for today's video. We'll explore further years of bachelor and then masters and further working conditions and all of that in future videos. I hope you enjoyed it. We had fun reminiscing, right?
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Yeah, and both went through definitely. And
yes. We actually had that added bonus of finding that best friends to start your company with.
That's true. That was the most important part.
Yes. Most beneficial.
Yes. So yeah, we hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below, and please subscribe if you enjoyed it. And we'll definitely try to make a little bit more videos together as well, apart from our podcast series videos as well.